Hi, I'm Mark from Sounds in Sync, the developer of EdiLoad. In this video, I'm going to show you the new features in the EdiLoad version 6 assembly window. I won't be covering everything there is to know about assembling WAV files with EdiLoad, so if you haven't already seen it, check out the EdiLoad version 5 assembly demo video first. I'll add a link to this video in the description notes below. I'll be demonstrating the two new match modes which can help to match WAV files when your edit list is missing valuable data. I'll also demonstrate the highly sought after Align Waveforms feature, which can sync or phase align your location WAV files to one or more guide tracks. But first, I'll run through a few of the smaller updates. Guide tracks can now be loaded into the assembly window and are used as a reference for aligning waveforms or selecting the correct location WAV file or section within a WAV file. We recommend loading mono WAVs, although if a poly WAV is loaded, you simply select the channel to reference here. Make sure each guide WAV has the same sample rate as your location WAVs, and make sure it displays the correct timestamp. If the edit contains overlapping dialogue or alt text that you want EdiLoad to access, up to 6 guide tracks can be loaded that overlap or have the same timestamp. Create the alternate guides so that they are mostly mute and contain just the alternate or overlapping dialogue for the sections required. Note that for every alternate guide that is loaded, the processing time of the functions that use them will increase. This window can also contain one or more WAV files for each film reel or TV episode, when the reels or episodes start at different timecode locations. Here I have a mono guide for each reel of a feature film. EdiLoad will simply select the guide or guides it needs to reference by the timestamp of each file. Therefore, it is imperative that these timestamps are correct. When I close the window, the toolbar button displays the number of guides loaded. If you are working on multiple productions, we recognised with EdiLoad version 5 that the assembly window would take a lot of work to reconfigure for each job, especially now that you may need to load multiple guide tracks for each one. Enter the new Production Settings menu, accessed from either the main menu or the Prod Settings toolbar button. This menu provides access to 9 setting slots. Each slot stores all settings made in the settings window and the Export PTX Clip Color settings window, the location of the WAV file's parent folder, and the location of the loaded guide tracks. To save, simply select Save Current Settings, select a slot, and enter the production name. Keyboard shortcuts are provided for easy recall. You may have also noticed this new status bar. This not only displays the most important settings made in the settings window, but it also allows you to update the values directly. Hold Option or Alt and click on a value to change it. For example, I can toggle through the 3 match value options here. Alternatively, simply double-click the value to have it shown in the settings window. Now let's have a look at the new Align Waveforms feature. Here is an edit list of a single scene of a TV production and the associated poly WAV files. The mono guide track is also loaded for this scene. Clicking Match WAVs, we see all events match to a single poly WAV. When I export this as a PTX file and open it up in Pro Tools, you can see EdiLoad automatically includes the guide track that is loaded in the assembly window. Comparing the waveforms of the assembled clips against the guide track, you can see the clips aren't exactly in sync. You can also see that the size and shape of the guide track waveform matches the location WAV boom channel. We'll note this for later. But before continuing with the Align Waveforms demonstration, there are 2 things we recommend you check in EdiLoad that may resolve any sync errors that are less than 1 frame. First, let's go back to the assembly window and check the timestamps of the location WAVs. When your location WAVs look like these, where they contain subframe values and therefore don't start on a frame or second edge, the picture edit machine may have forced the WAVs to start on a frame edge and therefore caused a subframe sync error. If this is the case, you can sometimes resolve this issue by enabling the source rounding setting. I'll demonstrate with these files. When I select Adjust All Events and round to the closest edge, export a PTX file and open it up in Pro Tools, you can see most clips are now perfectly in sync. But there are still a few here that are out of sync by around 2 frames. We'll also keep a note of this sync error for later. So option 1, the source rounding setting, helped fix the sync for most clips, but not all of them. Option 2 is to check if the clips are out of sync by less than a frame and by quarter frame units. If you see this kind of sync error, it is most likely caused by the slip per feature in Media Composer, when the assistant slipped the sync of the audio by quarter frame units while syncing the rushes. To resolve this, request a linked AAF from the editor, and EdiLoad will be able to load these quarter frame offset values and apply them during the export of the assembled PTX and AAF files. See the user guide for more information. I mention these 2 options because if either fixed your sync problem, it can save a lot of processing time and will be a much more accurate way of creating an assembly that is perfectly in sync. Now, coming back to the assembly of our scene. As the source rounding selection helped, I'm going to leave that setting as is. The last thing we need to do is configure the Align Waveforms Settings tab. In the top section, we tell EdiLoad what channel of the location WAV files to compare against the guide track waveform. While looking at the clips in the Pro Tools session before, we saw that the first channel was used to create the guide track, so we'll either select the first channel here, or select this option and enter Boom, the name of the channel. If all channels were used to create the guide track, we can select All Channels. Also, while looking at the assembled clips in Pro Tools, we noticed some clips had a sync error of up to 2 frames. So here I'll set the maximum sync error to 3 frames, the default. Select an option that is as small as possible, but large enough that it captures the largest error that you can find. You may be tempted in this instance to just set this to 2 seconds to make sure all errors are found, but this will increase the processing time significantly and may also allow EdiLoad to match unrelated waveforms that it shouldn't. We'll leave the rest of the settings as default, including the processing mode, which is set to moderate. The main offset values that EdiLoad generates can be shown in frames or samples, just select that here, and will export markers for all events apart from the ones that EdiLoad sees that are in sync. Please refer to the user guide for more information. The main thing with this feature is to make sure that the WAV channel and the maximum sync error is set correctly. If they aren't, the process will most likely generate unusable results. As the guide track is loaded, I'll click the Align WAVs toolbar button and EdiLoad compares the waveforms of each location WAV boom channel with the guide track. In the Align Results column, EdiLoad displays the offset value and certainty percentage value. The higher the certainty percentage value is, the more likely EdiLoad returned an offset value that is correct. Also, check the Align Channel column to make sure EdiLoad compared the waveform of the correct location WAV channel. When I export a PTX file now and open it up in Pro Tools, you can see EdiLoad has exported the Align Waveforms results in markers. Markers were exported for all events apart from the ones that it found were in sync, as per the settings I just showed you. Skip through the markers shown to check the sync of the clips. As you can see, all clips are now perfectly in sync. Note, the marker comments also contain additional information, including the event number, so you can trace the markers back to edit list events. I'll just redo the alignment and show you what happens when I set the maximum sync error to 1 frame. Now, the 5 events that had a +2 frame offset are shown as red with brackets around the offset values. The brackets indicate that the offset found will not be applied during the PTX or AAF export, as it is either larger than the maximum sync error set, or the certainty percentage value is less than 70%, the current certainty percentage setting. So to achieve a good alignment, I can simply hold down Option and click the maximum error value twice here in the status bar to select a setting of 3 frames. Now, when I click Align Wavs, only the events that had an invalid result are realigned. If I click Align Wavs again, EdiLoad tells me that I need to click the Clear Align toolbar button first, as all events have a valid alignment. Another way to initiate the Align Wavs feature is with a right-click. Here I'll sort the list by the Align Results column, select all events with a 2-frame offset, and now I can select to align just these events with a different maximum error value. This can be a handy way of aligning a selection of events with different alignment settings. Here I'll select 3 frames, and notice EdiLoad clears the alignment of the selected events, and then realigns them. Now for one more test. I'll go back to the main window and add a source timecode offset of +2 seconds, so the match wav function will assemble the WAV files 2 seconds out of sync. I'll import the updated list into the assembly window, click Match Wavs and Align Wavs. Now you see an example of where EdiLoad hasn't been able to successfully compare any waveforms. This is because the maximum sync error is still set to 3 frames. When I set this to 2 seconds, click Clear Align and Align Wavs again, we'll see what happens. First, you can see it's taking a lot longer to compare the waveforms due to the additional material that needs to be sampled. But also you can see it's still doing a great job of finding the correct offsets. As this is a 25 FPS project, it's reporting a -50 frame offset for most of the events and a -48 frame offset for the 5 events that had a 2 frame offset before. So as you can see, this is a powerful tool for syncing your location WAV files so that they sync exactly with your guide track. But note that if your edit list contains short events, or events that reference WAV files that contain little to no dialogue, it will most likely not be as successful. This feature works with poly or split mono location WAV files and can align the waveforms for PTX and AAF file exports. For AAF file exports, an additional .csv text file is created containing the marker information. This can be loaded into doors like Nuendo that cannot import markers directly from AAF files. Please see the user guide for more information on what to do if your alignment doesn't work as expected. Now I'll move to the other new main feature for EdiLoad version 6, Match Mode Selection. On the first tab of the Settings window, you can now select between 3 match modes: Match by Edit Data, Match by File, and Match by Timecode. Match by Edit Data, the first option, is what was available in EdiLoad version 5. It is recommended where possible to use this mode, even if it means you need to manipulate the edit data, as this is the quickest and most accurate way of matching your WAV files. The other 2 options, Match by File and Match by Timecode, can be used when the edit list doesn't contain all the data that is required. Both options require 1 or more guide tracks to be loaded, like the Align Waveforms function, and each option, in particular Match by File, take time to compare the waveforms of the location WAVs with the guides. Let's see how these match modes work. As I just said, Match by Edit Data is the match mode that was available in EdiLoad version 5. To compare these match modes, let's have a quick refresher. Here is the edit list for a single scene we saw before. Each event contains multiple data fields that can be used to match each event to the correct WAV file. Here we will use the default match criteria, so as file name is the first option in the token field, the file name will be used to match each event to the appropriate WAV file. The source timecodes are also valid, as the source in and out points fall between the selected timestamp and WAV endpoint of the relevant WAV. So when I click Match WAVs, all events match perfectly. When we click an event, we see the file name is shown with blue text, confirming it was the field that was used to match the WAV. Here is the same edit list, but now all source timecodes are set to midnight, and obviously won't be able to link to any location WAV files. To test, I'll just click Match WAVs, while we still have the match mode set to match by edit data, and EdiLoad confirms it can't match any WAVs. If the edit list contains either a file name or scene intake number that will link to a single WAV or set of related WAVs, then we can use the match by file mode. As this edit list contains valid file name and scene intake numbers, we can match with either. Here I'll select the match by file mode and remove all match criteria options apart from file name to make sure we link each event to a single WAV. Now you can see only the file names are shown in blue text. Make sure a guide track is loaded and that the Align Waveforms channel controls are set correctly. When I click Match WAVs now, all source timecodes in the edit list are set to the timestamp of the matched WAV, and all events are shown as matched. I can now click Align WAVs. In this match mode, the Align WAVs function works slightly different to before. It instructs EdiLoad to compare each section of the guide track with the whole location WAV to find the selection in the WAV that is required. Because EdiLoad needs to compare a much longer waveform, this process will take much longer, around a minute per event, depending on the number of processes the CPU has, the length of each location WAV, and the number of overlapping guides. So for this section of the demo video, I sped it up considerably. As all these clips reference well-recorded dialogue, all aligned results are returned with a good certainty percentage. When I export a PTX file and open it up in Pro Tools, you can see all clips are perfectly aligned, apart from two short clips, here and here. Like the main Align Waveforms function, the Waveform Compare can produce varied results for short clips. So I'll illustrate quickly how I'd fix this. As we have access to the required WAV and the clips that follow the instances that need fixing, I'll just keep the reference boom channel and fix the two clips that didn't match correctly. I'll make a copy of a following clip that references the same WAV, extend it out, and locate the section required, filling the hole. I'll do the same with the second clip. And now save the session. I can now drop the saved PTX file onto the EdiLoad main window and load the edit data from the edited track. Notice that EdiLoad reports that the source of the clips are not on exact frame edges, as the clips were aligned to the guide track. I'll OK this, and EdiLoad just warns that it will round the edit numbers to the closest frame. So now the edit list has good source timecodes with a valid role name, file name, and scene intake data, which EdiLoad has imported from the metadata of each WAV. I'll bring this edit list back into the assembly window, set the match mode back to match by edit data. I can now click Match WAVs and Align WAVs, and now you can see a slightly different result for the offsets due to the rounding that EdiLoad did while importing the PTX file. When I export a Pro Tools session now and open it in Pro Tools, you can see all clips are perfectly in sync, showing all WAV channels. So from an edit list that didn't have any valid source timecodes, I was able to assemble all location WAV channels with a couple of manual fixes along the way. I showed you more than just the match by file match mode, but this may help demonstrate how other features of EdiLoad can be incorporated into your workflow. The Match by Timecode match mode is useful when your edit list doesn't contain any data that can be used to link each event with a location WAV file, for example a role name or file name, or when the WAV files don't contain any field recorder metadata. For this match mode to work, the edit list source timecodes must work with the WAV file timestamps, and the WAV file timestamps must be created using a time of day reference. In other words, the WAV files can't all have a timestamp set to midnight. Here I have an edit list for a single scene, but this time it's from a feature film. The WAV library contains all location WAV files that were recorded for the film shoot. I'll select the match mode, Match by Timecode. Notice all match criteria tokens are removed automatically. For this match mode, we also need to set up the top section of the Align Waveforms tab and load one or more guide tracks. Here I have 3 guides loaded, one for each reel, although I'd only need the single WAV that references this scene. I'll now click Match WAVs and click Cancel as I want to show you how this match mode works. In this mode, EdiLoad finds multiple matches as it finds all WAVs in the whole film shoot that were recorded at the source timecode time of day. As you can see, the edit list shows it needs to match a day 9 WAV file for each event. And when I select an event, there is a day 9 WAV linked to each event. Now just a quick note, if you are in this position where you have multiple unrelated matches, like the orange matches we have here, you can select these events, right click and select Match Odd Length WAVs to guide track waveform. This calls the same process as the second part of the Match by Timecode match mode you are about to see. So with no event selected, I'll clear all edit data in the edit list to prove this function works. Here I'll select the assembly menu item, clear all rows in edit list, then all columns above. I'll clear the match and click Match WAVs again. Now you can see EdiLoad has again found multiple matches for each event, but now it continues the process of comparing the waveforms of each location WAV file with the guide track to find the correct WAV. When I click an event now, you can see EdiLoad has found the correct WAV because each linked to a day 9 WAV. If it's helpful to you, you could now import the missing data into the edit list by transferring the metadata of each matched WAV into the edit list. To do this, select the Assembly Update Edit List from Matched WAVs menu item and confirm. I can also click Align WAVs here to not only check that all events are in sync, but also double check that the correct WAVs were matched. Seeing as all events are reported as being in sync with a good certainty percentage, I'll clear this and export a PTX file. Opening the session in Pro Tools, you can see the correct location WAV files were matched as the waveforms matched the guide track. As with the Align Waveforms function, short clips or clips that reference WAV files that contain minimal dialogue will have problems finding an exact match. But as we are using the Match by Timecode match mode, you'll just be left with more alternatives in your PTX or AAF file export that you'll need to delete in your DAW. So in summary, the Match by Timecode match mode can be a very valuable tool if your picture editor has edited the audio from the camera files in their timeline, when the camera files don't contain any data that can be used to match them to your location audio files. Here's a quick run through of some of the other new features in the Assembly window. The Settings window has a new Export tab. Here you can instruct EdiLoad to copy the matched WAVs or split the matched WAVs to mono during the PTX or AAF file export. The last option is very useful when your WAV library contains poly WAVs and you need to export an AAF, as AAF files can only be exported when they reference mono WAV files. Note also that the EdiLoad WAV file list window now contains comprehensive copy and split to mono functions, with the option to save these new files in a copy of the original folder structure or create new child folders set with the metadata of each WAV file. On the Assembly Settings window, Match Criteria 1 tab, you would have noticed that you can now match edit list file names to the original file name, which comes from the WAV IXML metadata. And new in EdiLoad version 5.1 was the option to match by shoot date. Clicking the Match WAVs toolbar button now processes only the selected events when an event selection is made. You can also right-click a selection and select one of the Match WAVs menus provided. This provides a quick way of matching certain events with a specific match criteria. To clear all match results, clear the row selection and click Clear Match. And finally, when you export a PTX file that is linked to 32-bit WAV files, EdiLoad now creates a PTX file in such a way that it doesn't force Pro Tools to copy all linked WAV files while opening the session. Please see the EdiLoad user guide in the EdiLoad help menu for a full list of all the new features and fixes in EdiLoad version 6. This guide is continually updated after the video is created, so please check the guide for anything new or not covered here. And a reminder, please see the EdiLoad file spec PDF also in the EdiLoad help menu to see what we recommend you request from your picture editor. Even if you've always used EDLs, we highly recommend you request a linked AF or XML depending on the system the editor is using. This concludes the demonstration of the new EdiLoad version 6 assembly window features. Thanks to all the EdiLoad users and beta testers who provided feature requests and valuable feedback over the years. To try EdiLoad for yourself, either on macOS or Windows, just head to the download page of the website. Once the app is installed, just run it and click Try to activate a trial license.